Hi guys, welcome back. Again, my name is Scott Webb. I am with C2C Sports Investment Group, and we're here to talk about the Super Bowl today. It's an exciting day, lots of plays, lots of props, some exciting things to go on here. So let's start breaking this game down, and let's start with how they got there. And I think the best way to look at this is that New England is now in their 10th Super Bowl, so that'll be a record for them. Their offense scored 28.6 points a game. That's second in the NFL. Their defense now has allowed over 24 points only once in the last month, since the first month of the season. And they are 13-1 in the last 14 games. And that one over 24 points game allowed was that one loss that they had. It was against Miami. It was 27-20. This will be Tom Brady going for his sixth Super Bowl ring, and thinking about that, I don't know that anybody will ever get to six anymore. No one's ever got there already. Five is a lot, and the way the NFL's played today, and all the changes that are made regarding free agents and moving the players around and the equality of the teams, I find it hard to believe that six will ever be beat. That said, but that's what records are for, so we'll see how that plays out. But the Patriots are in a different position than what Philadelphia is. The reason is that the Patriots came into this season as ranked number one in the AFC. They are supposed to be where they are. They were predicted to win statistically 11 and a half games, 12 games. So they were statistically the best team coming in. They lived up to it except for the first 4 games of the season. They played out where over the course of the season, they even had a run where, even with the Patriots, they have to cover double-digit spreads. But they went on an awesome 10-1 run against the spread, and that was in the middle to the late part of the year. So there's no reason to believe that this New England team isn't what they're supposed to be. Not that they're the best New England team that's ever made the Super Bowl. But in the AFC, they are the team that was supposed to be beaten. Nobody could get in front of them, knock them out of the way. So here they are. They're at the Super Bowl. That's where everybody expected them to be. Philadelphia is a little different story. At the beginning part of the season, they weren't necessarily even picked by some to win their own division. So some of what happened is, Dallas didn't play well. Obviously, the Giants had their issues, and the Redskins weren't that competitive either. So they ended up winning the first couple of games and did so against some pretty good teams. Then they went on a run against some pretty bad teams and really beat them up pretty good. So by the middle part to the year, towards the I guess the latter part of the middle part of the year, that's when Philadelphia started being considered as one of the best teams in football. And not only that, but they were considered to be obviously one of the best teams in the NFC. But they were also paired against the other teams in the NFC with your Minnesotas and your New Orleans, and trying to figure out, and even the Rams, trying to figure out who was the best team. And it wasn't necessarily always the Eagles on that side that was the favorite. So I think they're used to being in a sort of a challenged role. I think they're used to trying to have to prove themselves. And that was no evident more than being in the playoffs as home dog as a number one seed for the last 2 playoff games. So I think that a lot of ways you can say that the Philadelphia Eagles have overachieved what they were supposed to do at the beginning part of the season. And they are in this game. They deserve to be in this game. But they're also a team that wasn't necessarily expected to be in this game. So when you start to think about, in comparison of the two teams, start to think about where they've come from, what it looks like in terms of expectations, and now how did they get there and how did they arrive. So we're going to talk a little bit about Rob Gronkowski. It was up to Thursday night where they were considering whether he was going to play or not. All my analysis and everything that I put into the game was understanding that he would play. And finally, he's out of concussion protocol, so he will play. So we don't have any issues with Rob in the game. But he is by far number one weapon, whether he's used as a blocker, whether he's used as a receiver for New England that they have. And I think he's very, very valuable. Last year, when New England played in the Super Bowl against Atlanta, Rob Gronkowski did not play. And prior to that, in 2015, he was also injured, so he only played on a limited basis. So I think this is his time to really go out and go and say, hey, listen, I'm ready to play. I'm here. He shows up and he plays well. So I think we don't have to worry about him. I actually think he's going to be a pretty producible weapon for them. He creates tons of mismatches. He creates problems for any team, not just the Eagles, but any team in terms of his run blocking. He creates for other wide receivers because he draws people to him. He's their key primary guy in the red zone. And as a deep threat, he really is one. He cuts up the seam right down the middle. Cooks does things on the ends, on the outside, but they throw to Gronk as a deep pass receiver too. So he's a mismatch for any Philadelphia defender that they put on him. But there's a good likelihood with the 2 weeks of prep time that they're going to really work on trying to take him out of the game as the number one threat that the New England has. So let's talk a little bit about what this kind of looks like. I think that the last time these teams matched up was in 2016. It was 2015. And the reason that I don't want to use any of that information is twofold. One, it was a Chip Kelly run team, so the offense is totally different. They might have a few segments of that offense, but the second part of it is the statistical data and all that stuff in that game is kind of blown out of proportion because Philadelphia had 3 return touchdowns in that game. So there's really no value to how this particular game will play out versus the last recent history did. So we got to move beyond that. We got to go forward, and we got to figure out how does this really work. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about roundabout things here, but there's one very interesting thing that's going on in this game that's been unprecedented, that's never happened before, and that's the defense for the New England Patriots. The defense for the year, they ranked 31st by Pro Football Outsiders. And if you take away the first 4 games, they rank 14th. So they're a team that has improved dramatically minus those first 4 games. But in all of the years that Football Outsiders has been doing the rankings and so forth, there's never been a team that's had a worst defense ranked 31st that's actually played for the Super Bowl. So that's a big thing. It's unprecedented, but you have to determine where the line is on this defense, because the other part of this defense that everybody needs to remember, they still might be a very porous defense for the first 80 yards. So if you think about it, after you go from 1 to 80 and then you got to go the other 20, that's where the money is, right? That's where the points are. This defense is ranked 32nd in yards per drive, but they're only 6th in points allowed. So think about that. That's totally unique. It's unprecedented. It's never happened this way before. Usually if you're going to be last in yards per drive, you're going to be near the last in points allowed. It makes sense. But that's what this defense does. They are the ultimate bend but don't break defense, and when they need to make a stop on 3rd down or in the red zone, that's typically what they do. So it's going to be one of those deals where I think you have to keep that in mind every step of the way, because there's a big focus point that we need to really look at, is what happened the last time you've seen these teams play. The last time you saw these teams play, Philadelphia was a monster. They destroyed one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. They beat up on the Minnesota Vikings. Wasn't even a contest. They destroyed them. So Nick Foles played extremely well, threw lots of touchdown passes. He threw dimes right dropped over receivers in between other defenders. So he played actually his very best game as an NFL player he's ever played in that game. Then you look on the other side and you look at what happened with the New England Patriots, and they were behind at halftime. They had to get off the mat. They had to win the game at home. And come from behind fashion to do it. And they were playing against a very good defense. Actually, that defense that they played last week has better secondary players, especially at the corners, than they're going to see from the Philadelphia Eagles. So keeping that in mind, what you saw last isn't always the right answer to how you play today. And we're going to kind of look at that some. I don't believe in the idea that they're going to take a Nick Foles, for example, who's off his very best game, and then expect him to play that well again. I don't think he's going to have his very best game. That doesn't mean he's going to go out there and have his worst game, but he's going to certainly regress more back towards what his normal game looks like. And his normal game is a far cry from something that you really want to put your money on in terms of how to bet this type of a game and rely on him to do so. One of the reasons that this is going to be a kind of important aspect of the game for the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to hit you with a couple of numbers here that make sense, right? So I think the game plays out where Philadelphia has to script their first 15 plays or so. They have to be very successful. They also have to be, I wouldn't call them safe plays, but they need to get the quarterback in rhythm. And they must, absolutely must have early success. And here's why. They cannot expect Foles to play from behind and beat the New England Patriots. In all of his career, when his team allows 24 points or more, his record is 5-14. When he has to lead the team to a fourth quarter comeback, his record is 6-11. When he throws more than 40 passes, his record is 3-6. The other interesting part of this too is there's a big mismatch when it comes to the end of the games. The defense trying to protect a lead for Philadelphia and trying to stay within the number, they rank number 14. Tom Brady and their offense is ranked number 2. Of course, they rank number 1 and number 2 in almost every metric of all offenses. So they're still a dynamic offense. They're one of the best ever. So you would almost expect them to be there. But the issue is that if they get behind, certainly New England has the faith in Tom Brady. He's been there before. The team's been there before. Heck, it even happened last week. He can come back against whatever the kind of offense or defense that is out there. And there is a history and a proponent from New England or from the Philadelphia side to give up some of those points and have a harder time protecting those leads. So it is extremely critical for the Philadelphia Eagles to have great success early. So I expect them to have a little bit of that. I expect them to do well in the first quarter. I expect them to do well maybe even in the first half in terms of a competitive game. They might even be ahead at halftime just like Jacksonville was. And I do expect them to take the lead first. So that means Tom Brady might be playing from behind early. That being said, the way that your Philadelphia can move the ball is an interesting format. I have heard tons and tons of talk about two different things. How great the Philadelphia Eagle offensive line is, and secondly, that they want to shorten the game, control the ball, and do so with the running game using Ajayi and using Blunt. So I'm going to disagree here. I do agree that they want to control the ball. I do agree that they don't want to give the New England Patriots and Tom Brady their opportunities, so they want to have long drives. I disagree in a sense of how to do that. One of the things that I looked at is how is Philadelphia running the ball? Well, the truth of the matter is, in terms of how they rank in what's called DVOA, and that's a sabermetric number that Pro Football Outsiders comes up with and evaluates the category, in this case rushing. Since I think it was I'm trying to look at my notes here. I've got 3 pages of notes as I'm doing this, but as I'm looking at it, as their rushing goes down, they started and have fallen to the absolute 30, ranked number 31 since week number 8 in rushing. So they started off well rushing the ball. Wentz is there doing a lot of run pass options. He's doing a lot of scrambles. He's throwing deep, creating a lot of running plays, creating a lot of running opportunities. But as it's gone down, and now that Foles is in the game, there's a lot less scrambling going on, a lot less having to control the pocket for that quarterback. But the defenses are packing things in a little better, and they are not actually rushing the ball very well. One of the other notes to really look at here is that offensive line. The truth of the matter with the offensive line is that they're graded by a category called offensive line adjusted yards. So those are the yards that are gained because of holes that are created, not because of the elusiveness of the running back. So in Philadelphia's case, their offensive line and adjusted yards rate gained, they ranked 22nd in the league. So for the perception of them being this hammer, smash mouth, great offensive line, the truth is they're not really that. I think they're getting a lot more credit than really what they deserve. And the other side of that is in pass protection. Because they don't give up a lot of sacks, that does not mean they don't give a lot of pressures. And they actually ranked 31st in pressures. So that means you need to have an elusive quarterback. You need to be able to shift and slide and do a couple of things to make sure that you're not getting sacked. And that's one of the strengths that you had from Carson Wentz. And that's also a little shifty that was going on last week with Foles. Even on the long passes and the flea flicker play and some of these other things that he was doing, if you really watch the tape on it, he was almost getting sacked. But he did move in the pocket. He didn't scramble, but he moved to elude the pressure, even though it's counted as a pressure. He eluded it and then completed the pass. So again, there's a couple things here in play. Number one, you have Nick Foles playing above what he normally plays, and that's how he got the wins last week. And number two, there's a perception out there that the Philadelphia offensive line is just this juggernaut, greatest offensive line in the league. And it really is not. So the other side of that is something I'm going to hit you with New England's defense. They have played 2 playoff games, and then there was 2 games prior to that. All 4 of these teams had terrible quarterbacks, and all 4 of these teams were big rushing dominant teams. So if you look at the DVOA for the New England Patriots defense, it's a minus 18% for those 4 games. If you take minus 18%, stack rank it where it would be over the course of a season. I know it's a little hard to do it that way, but if you just think about it that way for perception of how good it is, it ranks number 2 in the NFL. So the defense is playing much better, and not only playing much better against the run, they're actually stuffing it. So my avenue for success, my path for success that I'm looking for trying to figure out how does Philadelphia move the ball, they're going to throw it. They're not going to throw it deep. They might do a couple of trick plays here and there, but again, they do want to maintain ball control. They want to have the ball. So if they're going to do that, the only way to do that is to have short passes, passes to the backs, passes across the middle, smaller, shorter 8-yard passes, 6-yard passes, flat passes to the backs, and see what they can create. Now that is a mismatch that is in the favor for Philadelphia if they can get that done. New England's defense is ranked 26th against short passes. They actually ranked number 11 against deep balls. So they're going to be much better if they try to throw the ball deep. So the way to move the ball plus maintain the ball is to throw a lot of short passes. So the one thing that they can also exploit, and is a weakness for New England, is the wheel route out of the backfield. The receivers, the running backs for Philadelphia can do the wheel route, which is they go and make it like a fake handoff, wheel out around the corner and go down the sideline for a deep pass, because the linebackers are pretty slow and they do have trouble defending against the deep ball of running backs as a cover piece. So that's the path and the avenue for success if Philadelphia is going to move the ball. So the other issue is going to be third downs. Third downs have been a big win for Philadelphia. It's also a big win for the New England defense. So now you're going to have power against power here. So who wins on third down is going to be critically important. But to get to third down, you've got to be able to win on first down. So it's a big matchup to see if you can get the yards necessary to have short third down conversions. If they can get short third down conversions, they're going to be able to move the ball. So one last thing about when Philadelphia has the ball, there's a significant, and I wouldn't even think that this is something a lot of people look at, but there's a significant advantage to New England special teams, so much to the degree that the average starting position for a New England, or for the team, their opponent, is inside the 25-yard line. In fact, New England's done it so well, they are the only team in the NFL that does that. Nobody else has an average starting position for the opponent inside the 25-yard line. The last time that New England played, and they played against Jacksonville, Jacksonville's actual starting position was at 20.8 or something like that. So the reality is they have to go that much farther every single time they get the ball to drive the length of the field. That's another winning successful trick that New England does that people don't talk about. So the way that this has to work is the small passes, short passes, maybe get your 1 yard here, 1 yard there, rushing the ball, but maintain a consistency in terms of the short passes, but also don't have the frustration that you're not gaining yards and you need the big plays. If they can stay within that confine, they'll be able to drive, they'll be able to move until they get inside the 20 when everything shrinks down. And then it's going to be whether they can get any kind of rushing going there or whether they have to kick field goals. So flipping it to the other side, when New England has the ball, New England is the number one offense in the league. They're number two at certain things, but mostly they're number one at everything. But where the game changes here is the strength of the Philadelphia defense versus the offense and what the offense can do for New England. The strength of the Philadelphia defense is not their secondary, it's their front line. And it's really the depth of the front line. They have more than 4 guys. They have 7 guys. They rotate them through, and all 7 of them can rush the passer from any of those spots. So what does that require? That requires them to be able to substitute. Well, the number 1 team or the number 2 team in the NFL at a no-huddle offense is the New England Patriots. So if the New England Patriots have a pace that is high, with no huddles, with spread offenses, no backs in the backfield, or put backs in the backfield, or do all kinds of different split outs, they have the ability to maneuver their offense in such ways that they don't have to make substitutions. Secondarily to that, they let Tom Brady go right up to the line of scrimmage, even do the sugar huddles, like they like to do with him and Aaron Rodgers, and try to catch those guys trying to make changes. That will be a certain advantage to what happens for New England. The reality is that the New England offense, I said number 1 or number 2, I'm looking at my notes, they're number 1 on the no-huddle offense, and the fact is the Philadelphia Eagles ranked versus a no-huddle offense, or I shouldn't say no-huddle, a hurry-up offense, they're ranked 26th in the league. So Yes, if you want to line up and headbutt them and go hand in hand and try to knock them off the ball, you're probably going to fail because they are a very talented group. They're very athletic and they're very physical. So how do you beat that? Well, you wear it out. You don't let them substitute. You don't let them be in positions where they have that opportunity. So pace of play for New England is going to be the number one thing to watch. They're going to move on a quick pace. They're going to throw a lot of passes. That they'll still run the ball some, even though I don't think they're going to do very successful in running the ball. They will make those attempts because they have to keep the defense honest. Some of the other big issues here that is a problem for Philadelphia, not a problem, they're a big advantage for New England. Running backs as receivers, the slot receiver, and the tight end. Well, those are all spots where they're not the main weapons for certain teams. Your main weapons are your number one wideout or your number two wideout. In this case, the running backs as receivers, Amendola as a slot receiver, Gronkowski as the tight end. These are all advantages. In fact, the defense is ranked number 22 against slot receivers. They're ranked number 17 against the tight end. And they do have trouble trying to get to running backs out of the backfield for coverage purposes. So they can scheme them to a point where they've got running backs flanked out, they're doing flat passes, tight ends going down the middle, the slot receivers doing crossing patterns that will make the linebackers or the strong safety have to focus on those guys. And by doing quick passes, 4 pass yard, 5 pass yards, and you know how consistent Tom Brady is with those types of things and being able to drive down the field, I think you're going to see them contain the ball. I don't know that they're going to try to score quickly, but I do think that they will score. And I don't think that Philadelphia is going to be able to maintain the level of consistency that they've had up to this point by playing the New England Patriots. So we talked about the New England defense, how much better it's been. And I think that the other part of this and the last part of this, and then we'll start talking about kind of wrapping it up, is the special teams. New England specializes in kickoffs of kicking the ball to the goal line or inside the 5 for a return and then going down and covering the guy and tackling him before the 25-yard line. That's by design. They work on that. They practice that. And again, they're the only team that does that in the NFL in terms and with the success that they do because the opponent's field position is inside their own 25. Every other kicker does a lot of kicking, gets the touchback, so the team starts at the 25-yard line. As the course of the game goes on, if you have 12 possessions and you are 5 yards different or even 8 yards difference during those 12 possessions, you have to overcome 60 yards in the game at a minimum, or if it's from the league average is the 28-yard line. So if it's from like the Jacksonville game was from the 20 to the 28, that's 8 yards. 12 possessions times 8 yards, 94 yards. So if you're looking at those, or 96 yards, or 94 yards, if you're looking at those things, the reality becomes you have to overcome that yardage gains or those, because of the field position. And then the punter does the same thing, pins them back there inside their 20 or inside the 25. So every single time you've got to drive the ball because they don't turn the ball over. So they're not going to give up the cheap points. So how many points can you score against that type of part of understanding the success of the New England Patriots is understanding that their defense is in lieu sort of helped by their offense. So their offense really is part of their defense. It's kind of a weird way to say it, but I mean, that's the way it works out. All right, so this is the way I kind of look at this game. Number one, looking at the Philadelphia side, they must have early success. They have the opportunity to throw short passes. The running backs can be successful, and they must win on third down. So that's how they win the game. On the Philadelphia side, they have the pace. They have the quarterback who's been there before to make those opportunities happen for them. They have the matchup advantages when it comes to those kinds of things, and they can wear down this defense. They are number one on offense. They have multiple choices of options as terms of weapons. They have a late game advantage over the defense. So if they are behind, the defense has shown a propensity to give up on those games. They have an advantage on the special teams. They have an advantage in red zone. They have an advantage in consistency. And they have an advantage to stopping what is perceived to be a Philadelphia strength, which is their running game. So you weigh out those two ledgers, New England wins the game. And I'm looking at a score here of, in my mind, somewhere around the 27-20 number. And the bets that I'm going to make on this play, I'm going to go with New England on the money line. I don't usually like to play money line wagers because of the odds in here, but it's a one-time shot. It's the Super Bowl. I'm looking at a minus 175 right now. There's minus 180s. I know that if you're looking at offshore books, they're minus 190s. But I'm doing 2 units on the minus 175 on the New England money line. One of the things that you might keep in mind, it is Friday as I'm recording this, that is anticipated that it might go down a little bit for tomorrow. If there's maybe a 170, you might find. I'm also going to go, there's a lot of numbers out there. So there's 48s, there's 48.5, there's 49 on the unders. 48.5 is pretty much a prominent number everywhere right now. 49 is available at the Wynn. 49 is available at the casinos. I'm going to use the 49 number because I do think from where I'm seeing it's going to go up to 49 sometime tomorrow. I'm going to go under 49 as a 1-unit play. The money line play for New England was a 2-unit play. And I'm going to do a 6-point teaser on this one. I'm going to take New England plus the 1.5, and I'm going to go under 55, and I'm going to put 1 unit on that. Based on the breakdown and the analysis of the game, I do have some props. I'm going to rattle them off pretty quick. You might have to replay it back. There will be a card that shows them. I've got several of them. It's around 10. And these props, I'm putting a half unit on each of them. And these aren't the crazy props. These are props that I'm trying to win. So number 1, total sacks by both teams under 4.5. That prop is minus 110. And some of these, I unfortunately didn't write down where I got them from. Some of them were on Global, and some of them were in Vegas. Philadelphia, the kicker, Elliott, field goals made over 1.5, minus 110. New England, Tom Brady, total pass attempts over 39.5. That's at minus 120. I'm also taking an alternate line. I'm putting this in here as a prop bet because it's kind of what it is. I'm going to take New England minus 7.5 because I'm getting great value here, and I think if anything, they might be able to stretch the number. So I'm looking at New England minus 7.5 plus 155 on that bet. I do like the idea that this game is 4 or 4.5. It's mostly 4.5 at places, and it could very easily come down to a 24-21 kind of game too. So I'm looking at a decided by 3 points exactly. I'm going to take that one. That's kind of my longest shot out there. That's a plus 400 number. I'm going to go with New England, Amendola, over 51.5 yards. That's minus 120. And second to that is New England, Amendola, over 4.5 receiving receptions. That's minus 135. I'm going to play the field goal will be longer than the total points in the game at plus 220. I think that somebody on an indoors can make a 50-yard field goal. I don't think there's going to be a 50 points in this game. So I like that one at plus 220. Philadelphia to score a rushing touchdown, yes, minus 110. I think that that's one of the things that they will do. But I don't think there's going to be like a quarterback sneak for a touchdown. I don't think there's going to be a short touchdown. Hence the next one. Shortest touchdown will be over 1.5 yards at plus 115. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teaser bets. I'm not 10 prop bets, 3 plays on the game, and my analysis of it. Man, I hope we have a great day. I'm looking forward to having some exciting, fun times, and let's make this thing a winner. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you later.